How are you doing, folks?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I just appreciate the opportunity. So I'm thankful to the Indy Chamber for giving us this opportunity. I think it's always helpful for voters to hear directly what all four of the candidates have to say. I was thankful for the forum that we had last week. I know there is a debate coming up on the 7th of October that we're excited for as well, but I really think it's just important for voters to hear directly from the candidates what they believe, and you put it on record.
The question came up of expanding mail-in voting, mobile voting, that sort of thing during times of natural disaster like floods, COVID, that sort of thing. So I want to be clear, so you do support that depending on the circumstance?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to look at every case and say what makes the most sense here. They talked a little bit about maybe mobile voting or something like that, or using travel boards more, something along those lines. I think it is important to look at every case. I know, like I said up there, I wouldn't commit to saying, hey, every scenario we're going to go ahead and figure out a way to change our voting to figure out each individual scenario. But, the mayor was right. I think it's directly important that we make sure we have security no matter what we're doing, right? So that voters have confidence in their elections, whether it's happening in sort of a crisis or whether it's happening in a regular order.
Also on mail-in voting, you were on the radio yesterday, you said you prefer people vote in person. Would you want to remove any of the 11 reasons we allow people to do mail-in absentee voting?
So I think it's important to know, like, in the state of Indiana, we do a good job on this, in my opinion. And I think one of the reasons for voting in person is just it gives voters more confidence when you're voting there right with the machine. You've got the paper trail on it, which I appreciate, that's recorded, that they have that confidence. Anything we can do to instill more confidence for our voters that their vote matters is important. But I also say for sure, and I said it today too, that if you're serving overseas, you have more of a right to vote than I do. Like, I understand that. You have to preserve that. There's a lot of folks too, in my own family as well, that they can't get to the polling place. And so you certainly need to have an opportunity to vote absentee in those scenarios. I think what I would disagree with is expanding it so far that we have blanket mail-in ballots where folks that didn't even request a ballot are now receiving those and then trying to figure out, should I turn in that ballot or should I go vote in person? So anything we can do to inspire more confidence is a good thing.
So just to clarify, you're comfortable with the exceptions we have currently. You wouldn't want to take any of those away.
I think the exceptions are good. I think it's also important, as with anything, to review them regularly and say what makes the most sense. There's plenty of things that potentially become outdated, and you want to make sure that you have real reasons for folks not to be there, especially in this modern age. And so you do have to look at that as well.
The Copenhagen-Deary recount came up as well. So you believe that the recount commission was right to throw out those votes? You don't believe that intent of the voters should be considered?
What I said on the debate stage is that it's important that they follow the law. They did that. I think that it was a 3-0 vote on the outcome of that. And I think it's important to note that it was both Republicans and Democrats that made that decision. I think one of the other opponents on the stage said it was a 2-1 vote. That was a different thing. He was talking about a different issue, not what I was addressing. And so bipartisan result on that, and they followed the law.
I want to clarify the question about transparency as far as business ownership. I seem to hear that you were saying we should have that for like these trucking companies. Did you support putting owners' names on all businesses then?
So the State House already gave some authority to verify additional names as they're coming in on LLCs. I think the most important thing in that question is that the Secretary of State's office is capturing the data around these LLCs that are being filed. And when you see something like an anomaly, one of them was 14 identical LLCs in one home address. It's important to say that may be an issue. Let's take that information, let's further investigate it, potentially then work with the Attorney General's office if there is an issue and then prosecute that, because we have to make sure, especially on the issue of shell trucking companies, as we've seen in the last year, there's been several major wrecks where folks have died, they've been seriously injured. There was the one recently, very unfortunate, where the grandmother and the granddaughter had to be airlifted out. So I think it is particularly important that we capture that data and then use it well to make sure that we're keeping folks that are operating fraudulently off of the roads.
But I'm sorry, I just want to follow up. That data isn't public. Like right now, I don't get to know who owns that when I look up these records. Shouldn't the public know who owns the company?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. I think to make sure that we know maybe it's not another shell company from the perspective of even laundering foreign entities that own businesses or something like that too. I think transparency is a good thing.
You mentioned the Attorney General. This Secretary and the State Attorney General seem to have a pretty good relationship. When the federal government has come and asked for voter information, the Attorney General has advised the Secretary of State. What is your relationship with the Attorney General, and how will your office work with this Attorney General?
Yeah, I think it's important as a constitutionally elected statewide official that when you go to the State House, you are working with your statewide partners, that you have a good relationship with them, because so much of what happens in the State House is a group effort. And I do have a good relationship with the Attorney General. I have a great relationship with all of the statewide leaders in the State House. And I think that's a key distinguisher, too, for my candidacy, is that I'm already working with the State House, with our legislators, in the Elections Committee, in the Transportation Committee, and with our statewide partners, so that we could step into this role immediately and get to work. And I think that's a key distinguisher between the candidates as well.
You said you had the most experience out of folks on the ballot. Could you go into a little bit more detail? Greg Ballard was mayor, balanced $1 billion budget. What is your experience makes you unique to more qualified than the other candidates?
Very quickly, it's most experience for this particular role. So it's working for several small businesses across the state of Indiana. It's filing my own small business with the Secretary of State's office. It's working for the Chief Elections Committee in the U.S. House, gaining that oversight experience. And it's also working with legislators so that you can build a coalition around good policy. You know, the Secretary of State's office doesn't have a whole lot that's not given to it by the State House. You have to have those relationships and the ability to form coalitions, and that's why I have the most experience for this role to do the job well.
Thank you.
Thanks.